Hey everyone, it's Konrad Bobilak here, CEO of Investors Prime Real Estate and a best-selling international author of Australian real estate investing made simple. Welcome to today's video on house and land estates and the best 10 house and land estates in Melbourne in 2025 that you can buy into. And the reason I've made this video, there's a number of motivating factors. Number one, I'm just going to teach you how to identify completely objectively the best and the worst house or land estates in Melbourne. And I'm going to show you the exact methodology that you can use to verify these facts and these fundamental key drivers of different areas. And this is purely based on capital growth. I'm not here to judge areas based on demographics, income. I'm purely here to show you which estates have the greatest potential to go up in capital growth and which estates are going to stagnate and what are the determining factors and differential factors between the two estates. Because there's a lot of really bad estates in Melbourne that are getting built. And it's not just, don't take my word for it, I'm going to show you videos where the locals actually verify that the estates they live in are horrible. They have no amenities, no transport, no solutions. So that's number one. Number one, I'm just going to teach you how to identify the best house and land estates. And in fact, you can take this methodology in all around Australia. You can use it in Queensland, you can use it in Sydney, you can use it pretty much anywhere. Number two is because the Melbourne property market now, the median price differential between Melbourne and Sydney is 600,000. Melbourne median price is about $1 million. And you can't get much for $1 million in Melbourne. But anyway, it's $1 million. It's a middle property. And Sydney is 1.6. Melbourne's about to catch up and it's going to have a super growth spurt in the next 2 or 3 years. It's going to be a super cycle in Melbourne. And what you're going to find is there's a lot of project marketing companies will come out and say, Melbourne's booming, buy this house and land estate. Now, Melbourne is not house and land estates, guys. What makes Melbourne great are suburbs like Fitzroy, St Kilda, Brunswick, Carlton. These are old suburbs, 5, 6, 7 Ks from the city with a real village mentality and psychology and feel. You have boutique shops, cafes, restaurant, nightlife. Melbourne is not Wollert, 53 Ks from the city in the middle of a cow paddock. Okay, so you're going to be lied to by a lot of project marketing companies masquerading house and land estates as Melbourne. Just because it's in Melbourne doesn't mean that it's good. And if Melbourne booms, there's going to be estates that are going to stagnate horrifically in the next property cycle. So the biggest motivation, I guess, in making this video is to spare you the pain of putting your money into growth areas, supposedly growth areas, that are not going to do much. Now, having said that, I just want to clarify a couple of things because it is a bit of a controversial video. I'm going to name and shame suburbs, and I'm sure I'm going to get some emails from people that are emotionally, involved in these suburbs. They might happen to live there or the family lives there. Number one, this is purely for investing only, number one. It's not about lifestyle. It's purely about what makes a suburb great fundamentally and what makes a suburb dysfunctional. I'm also going to back it up with government data and independent reports. And I'm going to give you a really good understanding of how you can verify all this information, for yourself. But the most important thing is I'm not here judging people based on affordability. Everyone starts off somewhere. So this is not any kind of judgment. There's no emotion here, guys. I'm here purely to tell you where to put your money to maximize your return and which areas to avoid. And that is it. There's no other motivation. I'm not a developer. I'm not trying to push an area or make an area look good or bad. I can sell any suburb in Melbourne. I'm a sourcing specialist. I'm a buyer's advocate. I can do whatever I like. Okay. I'm not a developer trying to make something look good so you can buy into it. So the number one thing is this video is completely objective. Okay, there is no agenda here. I'm just going to show you exactly what it is. And I encourage you guys just to verify everything that I'm saying and do your independent research. So let's get into it. And before we get started, a bit of a disclaimer. This is purely my opinion only based on my experience in the real estate and financial service sector for the last 30 years. So I'm not giving you any financial advice whatsoever. I've never met you. I don't know your financial standing. So before you do anything, please see someone that is qualified to give you financial advice or someone that has verifiable evidence that they've achieved exactly what you want to achieve. A bit about myself, I obviously run this YouTube channel. I'm also a real estate agent. I'm an ex-broker, ex-banking, ex-financial service sector person. So I've been doing this for 30 years now. The most important thing, guys, is that I'm a property investor myself. Just like you, I'm making money in Melbourne. And most of my properties are located in Melbourne. So I'm investing every day, refinancing, doing evaluations, buying and selling real estate. So I'm keeping it real, and I'm also doing stuff for my clients as well. So everything that I'm showing you today is practical, it's real, it's pretty much up-to-date information. I also want to thank you once again for making my book #1 bestseller on Amazon in real estate investments, and also my finance book, which I'm about to rewrite and update. And the fundamentals have never really changed, but it is outdated now. It's 10 years old. Also still continues to be in the top 10 finance books on Amazon. So I really want to thank you guys for buying my books and supporting me. You know, when you publish a book, you never know who's going to buy it, if anyone, apart from your mum, of course. So I really want to thank you guys for doing that, and supporting my books. So, by the way, if you want to get a copy of my book, jump onto realestateMadeSimple.com.au for the real estate book. And if you want to learn how to pay off your mortgage in record time and set up a property portfolio that could be automated and in a passive way, jump onto bookonfinance.com.au and you can grab my book there for $30. Enough of that. Let's get into it. Now, before I go into the best suburbs in Melbourne, okay, and talk about the fundamental growth factors, I want to show you. #1 is, what are the determining factors that make an area good? #1. And I've actually done videos on this. There's actually 46 points of due diligence that I have as an individual that I do on every suburb before I decide to buy there. And I've done a video about 10 things you need to be aware of before you invest into a suburb. But I'm going to give you the big picture fundamental things you need to be aware of that determine the growth factors of a suburb. And I'm going to show you the worst suburbs in Melbourne. Actually, name the estates that are the worst estates in Melbourne right now, which you should avoid, like a Tina Arena concert. I heard she's touring again. Okay, don't go. And I'm going to then show you to the reverse of that. Okay, based on the same fundamentals, the top 10 best estates in Melbourne. And the most important thing is what I'm going to give you today is the tools that you can take away from this video, where you can do your own independent research based on the fundamentals that I'm going to show you that took me about 30 years to acquire. So the most important thing to understand at a macro level thing about the suburb is, because it's suburb driven, 80% of the growth of a property is suburb related, and then 20% is the actual property and dwelling. Okay, so it's not so for example, the highest capital growth suburb in Melbourne usually is Kew or Mont Albert North or Balwyn, one of those areas, right? So it's the area that has the growth, and then the property itself, whether it's an apartment or a townhouse or a detached house, that can determine also the capital growth of that specific property and the rental yield. But really, it's 80% is driven by the brand of the suburb. Port Melbourne's another area that's really good, that always goes up in value and outperforms the rest of the market. There are suburbs like this in Melbourne, and I focus on the top 100. But really, what it comes down to is the lifestyle triangle, and it's the time that it takes for an individual to travel from home to work, from work if you have children to a school, and potential lifestyle areas, so cafes, restaurants, entertainment, nightlife, and then back home. And that's really the most determining factor of capital growth in Melbourne at a very macro level, big pictures kind of level. Melbourne obviously is priced by the distance between the property and the city and water. So waterfront properties tend to do much better, and I'll show you the table to back this up. But this is really the determining factor. So for example, if your home is in, let's say, Bentley, and you work in Bentley, and your kids go to McKinnon High, then it takes you 5 minutes to go to work, 5 minutes to pick up your kids, and 5 minutes back home. Well, that's a really good lifestyle triangle, and people will pay a premium for that lifestyle triangle. It doesn't matter if you're in Brunswick or Essendon, for example. You work in Essendon, you live in Essendon, and you go to Essendon Grammar, for example, right? So if you got 10 minutes round road trip, that's going to be really cool. But if you're living, say, in Moorabbin, and then you work in Geelong, and then you're on the train for an hour and 15 minutes each way, and then you got to pick up your kids after that, so you're on the road for 2 hours every day, you're not going to have a very good time, okay? If you compound that in a week, you're going to be completely just drained of energy. So obviously, if people can have everything, and it's not based so much on distance, it's based on time, because what I've noticed in the last 10 years is highways and freeways have changed areas. Like, for example, Mitcham, Vermont South, which used to be kind of in the far eastern part of Melbourne. Ever since the Eastlink was connected back in 2008, they've boomed, because now it takes 15, 20 minutes to get to the city, where before it was an hour. So it's not so much a distance. It is a distance, but it's also the time that it takes for you to get from home to work, to school, all lifestyle areas, and then back home. So just keep that triangle in mind. I'm going to use that as an example throughout this video. It's very fundamental. And if you want to have a more detailed video, there's a link I'll leave in the description of a video that I did a few years ago about the 10 fundamental things you need to understand before you buy into a suburb. And you can watch that. It gives you more micro level, due diligence and research. The most important thing about Melbourne is that people have to understand, and most people think that people live in Melbourne that work in the city. It's not true. These are the job hubs in Melbourne based on concentration of employment centres in Melbourne. And it's interesting because about 80% of jobs are concentrated outside the central business district. Only 20% of jobs are inside the central business district in Melbourne. And with COVID lockdowns and now the ability to work from home, that real estate in the city has plummeted to a large extent. And that distance from homes to the city has also been impacted in different ways. And so, because people now can work from home 4 days a week and commute 1 day a week to the city. So there's different ways of looking at that. But the most important thing to understand about Melbourne and Sydney and other major capital cities is very small percentage of people actually work in the city because of technology, because of Google Meet and Zoom, and even like things like Pexa and even things like DocuSign. Everything's digital now, everything's online. You can be working on the park bench all day and still be super productive. You don't need to be in a cubicle in the city anymore like you were in the 90s and the early 2000s, where it was all in the city and it was all there. That was the vibe of the whole major capital city. That's gone. That's never coming back again. Technology is making it now more flexible for people to work from home than ever. And people are more productive because they can then prioritize their activities around their family life, not the other way around. So if you look at Melbourne, for example, these are job hubs in 24 by volume of people and size. So you've got Clayton, Tullamarine, Kew Hawthorn, Box Hill, St Kilda, Moorabbin, Heidelberg, Malvern, Bayswater, Dandenong, Footscray, Glen Waverley, Frankston, Glen Iris, Malvern East, Cheltenham, Hyatt, Ringwood. Cheltenham High will be because of Southland Shopping Centre, for example. Ringwood, Wantirna South, Moonee Ponds, La Trobe University, which is a huge employer of people. Whenever there's a campus, whether it's Monash, La Trobe or anything, it's tens of thousands of potentially employees and teachers. Burwood East, Oakleigh, Greensborough, Broadmeadows, Blackburn, Heathmont, Sunshine, Preston, Northland. Now, it doesn't mean that this is the only fundamental factor you use to scrutinise whether an area should be worth investing in, but this is one of the biggest ones, because even if you look at, for example, let's say Heidelberg proper, right? Heidelberg has a big concentration of hospitals and medical. There's a huge medical precinct there with the Austin Hospital and the Olivia Newton-John Cancer Ward and all those kind of hospitals. So you have thousands and thousands of medical staff in Heidelberg. So if your kids go to Heidelberg Grammar or the high school there or the primary school, and you live in Heidelberg and you're working on the hospitals, you're going to have a very good lifestyle triangle, and that's why people pay a premium to be in Heidelberg. It can be anywhere. It can be Glen Iris is another great area. Moonee Ponds, for example, fantastic suburb in Melbourne. I've always been targeting Moonee Ponds. A little bit too high density now. There's a lot of apartments being built there which don't really work well in Moonee Ponds. But if you stick to houses and townhouses, they do really well. You've got great schools. You've got Essendon Grammar around the corner and St Columba's Primary School and things like that, but in Essendon, which is one of the best suburbs in that part of the city. But also you have extensive streets covered with cafes and restaurants and bars, gyms. I mean, you've got everything. You can go out at night, get a coffee, go and see things. You're very close to the city. So you're very well located, and people pay a premium for that suburb to function. Now, the other question is also, can they build house and land estates in those suburbs? Because if you look at, for example, I don't know, St Kilda, well, there's no room left for a house and land estate to be built. So we're talking about house and land estates. But I just want to show you that most people in Melbourne do not work in the city. They work in suburbs outside the city. And this is the heat map of real estate price based on distance from central business district and the sea. And you can see there, the burgundy kind of dark patches represent the highest median price properties in Melbourne. Now, usually where there's the highest concentration of expensive properties means by definition and by default that people pay a premium because they have a very good lifestyle triangle. They have very good amenities, transport, schools, safety, prestige, distance to the city, etc., etc. People won't pay a premium to be in the middle of a cow paddock, right? With no amenities, no access to hospitals, restaurants, cafes, right? So people pay a premium where there's more competition over the same property. So what we're trying to do with this video, I'm going to show you where are the house and land estates that are located in these prime areas, if there's any at all, and how can we target them and discover them. Sydney is exactly the same. There's no difference. It's just geographically completely different as a city. But in terms of its fundamental growth factors that determine capital growth, it works in every major capital city in Australia. The closer you are to the city, the more prestigious the suburb, the higher the median price of the suburb. As you get further away from the city and your access to amenities diminishes, then you pay less of premium because there's more land available and there's less things built: roads, schools, transport, cafes, restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this table shows you that as you get further away from the city, and this is based on kilometres, the median price drops down for Melbourne. This is the same in Sydney as well. So, for example, in Melbourne, the median price for houses between 0 and 5 kilometres from the central business district is 1.568 million. Okay, and the difference between Melbourne and Sydney is about 37% difference. Sydney is 2.5 nearly million. Now, once you get outside of that 0 to 5 ring and you go into the next ring, right, the median price drops in Melbourne by only 3% from 1.568 million down to 1.515 million, which is not a big difference in drop, right? So you want to get it if you can get it within a 10k radius of the city, you're going to do really well for capital growth. Once you go outside the 10k radius, you get to the 10 to 15, the median price drops by 19% from 1.51 down to 1.267, and the differential is 19% combined. That's a substantial decrease in pricing, and obviously the circle gets bigger and bigger as you get further from the city. Therefore, there's more land and properties located in that circle as well. Now, once you get to 15 and 20Ks, you get to minus 42% differential. So it drops down from 1.568 million to 907,000. That's a huge drop, nearly half. And then it kind of stabilizes. It doesn't really make a difference then how far you go out. So the moment you reach that 15k radius, you're out pretty much, like that's the determining factor. So you want to get as close as you can to the city. Why? Because you have access to a lot of amenities, transport, schools, lifestyle areas, etc. So if you can get as an individual, if you're an investor or a buyer, if you can have a lifestyle triangle that encompasses your work, your school, if you have children, or lifestyle areas, and then back home in a very short period of time in terms of travel, you're going to pay a premium for that as well. Once we get to 35 to 40Ks, it only goes down by 62% from 42%. So it goes down to 592,000. And these are the outer house and land estates in Melbourne, which are, 40Ks, 50Ks, 60Ks from the city, because you're basically subdividing cow paddocks and you're buying land, rural land, and then rezoning it as a developer. If you're building out there, you would be building any, infill areas or greenfields. So that's an interesting fact. Another thing is also the postcodes with the highest average taxable income. I always mention this. If you just had one fundamental methodology of shortlisting properties for growth only, by the way, not for options, subdivisions, redevelopment, strata. I'm talking about purely buy and hold, market-reliant capital growth. Target the areas that have the highest capital growth income, so the highest disposable income per person demographically in that suburb, and you can't go wrong. You outperform 90% of the market. So, for example, in Melbourne, Toorak is number one suburb, which is 222,967 average taxable income per person per year. Now, the thing is this: most rich people don't have salaries; they have distributions of income through trust, directorship fees, or they get paid through trust. So in Toorak, Hawthorn, Brighton, people making millions of dollars per year, they're not going to declare $1 million and pay, 46.5% tax. They're not that stupid. Majority of the tax in Australia is paid by the lowest income earners. The middle class and the upper class virtually pay no tax because of negative gearing and deductions, and they're just clever with their money. Using the same tax system available for everyone, by the way. Portsea, 221,000. Albert Park, Middle Park, 158,000. Brighton East, Brighton North, 154,000. Kooyong, Melbourne North, 143,000. East Melbourne, great suburb to invest in, 142,000. And then goes down there, Armadale, etc., etc. So basically, if you just focus on areas that have the highest income demographics per capita, you can't go wrong, because those people are getting clustered together as a demographic, and they're prepared to pay more for that space and that premium. Same thing that works the other way. If you go for areas which have the lowest income per capita, so people that are completely broke, unemployed, or on Centrelink, you're going to get the lowest capital growth because they can't borrow the money. The most important thing, guys, is I'm not judging people by what they do for work, by the way. You got to understand one thing is that when you're buying a property, most of the time you're borrowing money, and your borrowing capacity is based on your income. So if you're on 300,000 a year, you can borrow around 7-8 times your income right now, right? So 2.1, 2.5 million, let's say. If you're on $30,000 a year, okay, it's the same multiple factor of 6 or 7. You can borrow $200,000, 150 to 200. So, you're higher their income, the greater propensity to borrow money, but also the greater propensity to compete with others for the same market. So by definition, if it works in favor of the area, it can work against the area based on the same methodology. And these are some of the lowest capital growth suburbs in Victoria. And you can check it out for yourself. And these are outer areas, that have the lowest capital growth, lowest income. So would we want to invest there? Not necessarily. I would stay away from that unless you have some specific knowledge about the town. There's going to be a boom for some reason, or new industries emerging. But if it's just going as it's been going for a long time, I wouldn't put my money into Logan or Emu or any of those areas. You have to really have specialized local knowledge and have some insider information, but in a good way, in a very legal way. So Melbourne's richest and poorest suburbs, and this is based on the Australian Bureau of Statistics, these are the most advantaged suburbs in Melbourne based on income. And with the advantaged suburbs comes also amenities and access to schools, restaurants, and transport. So East Melbourne, Glen Iris East, Surrey Hills West, Canterbury, Toorak, Brighton, Ivanhoe, Eaglemont, South Yarra West, Camberwell, Balmoral, and Albert Park. I'll tell you one thing now, if you built your entire property portfolio in those 10 suburbs, but just don't buy apartments because they don't work, but just buy townhouses and detached houses, you can't go wrong in Melbourne. You don't need any more knowledge than that, literally, if you just target those 10 plus suburbs that I've just mentioned before. These are the most disadvantaged areas in Melbourne that I would never invest in under any circumstances. Now, that's for buy and hold. For subdivisions, it's different, because subdividing a big block, say 1,000 square meters, and chopping it up into 4 townhouses and then selling it with DAs to a developer, that could be a very good strategy in Broadmeadows, because the council's trying to put more money into the suburbs. So please don't misunderstand that I'm only talking about capital growth appreciation based on market appreciation. I'm not talking about subdivisions, developing, renovations. All that stuff is completely different. So for buy and hold, the worst areas to buy properties in Melbourne, without any question, is Broadmeadows, Corio, Norlane. Now, Corio, Norlane, I used to look after the Norlane medical clinic there, the dental clinic, when I was working for Medfin. That is a really good area for subdivisions. The council's really cool with subdivisions, and it's got huge blocks, very cheap, right? So once again, I cannot overemphasize this. Subdivisions work well in Norlane, just the capital growth is average. Campbellfield, Coolaroo, Morwell, Breeside, Doveton, Meadow Heights, Maribyrnong, and Maribyrnong. Can't they just have good names? St Albans South and St Albans North. There's a huge difference between St Albans South and St Albans North. St Albans South is run by the Comancheros, and North is by the Hells Angels. I'm just kidding. Don't go there. Don't invest there. There's nothing to be seen. Now, the reason why only a few investors manage to build a large property portfolios, and we know the statistics that 71% of investors only have one property, is because they buy the property in the same suburb they live in, because it's a comfort zone thing. So they live in Broadmeadows, they buy another house in Broadmeadows, so they can keep an eye out for it. And you have to keep an eye on properties, because if you're driving one day and you're driving by the property and it's gone, geez, you got to ring on your wife, honey, our property's just disappeared. I was just driving by and the house is gone. I don't know what happened to it. Driving by your house has no value adding to the capital growth potential of your property, and buying in your comfort zone is the worst possible thing you can do. So live where you can afford to live, invest based on fundamentals with no emotion. That's the number one trap people fall into, So if you happen to live in a good suburb, if you're living in Moonee Ponds, yeah, fine. Buy everything in Moonee Ponds. If you're living in Yarraville, Carlton, yes, you can do your whole portfolio in Carlton, Yarraville, no problem. But if you're living in an area that's not the best capital growth area, but it might be an ideal area for you based on job, family, convenience, whatever it is, then live there, buy your house there, just don't invest there. It doesn't make sense. And this is why I believe number one trap, lack of financial literacy and emotional buying of property, which is keeping most investors limited with one investment property only. The ones that make it to 6 or more properties, which is only 0.9%, are the ones that do completely unemotional, due diligence and research, and they buy where they can buy based on capital appreciation potential. So if you look at land tax now in Victoria, has really changed the game to a large extent, because houses with big blocks now are virtually impossible to hold on to. And I did a whole video on land tax, by the way, and I compared a detached house to a townhouse. Land tax now is so expensive. So if you've got an old house from the 50s and 60s on 1,000 square meters, you're paying, 10, 15 grand a year in land tax, where a townhouse in the same suburb could only attract maybe $1,000. So houses with big blocks, because of the new Victoria land tax that's been introduced, it made it virtually impossible for you to buy 10 of those properties and retire because of land tax. Land tax has changed everything. And if you don't know what I mean, jump onto my YouTube channel and check out my land tax video that I did just a while back. So apartments don't work in Melbourne at all. There's massive issues with apartments. I went to another video on apartments. There's not only cladding issues, there's construction issues. There's a lot of apartments that have been purchased around Melbourne. There's cracks in the concrete. They've been condemned. People can't get their money out. They can't sell. They're in limbo. They can't be fixed. And people are just paying their mortgages. They're completely financially ruined, and they're in complete limbo. So I'm going to do a whole video about apartments, how they have failed miserably in Melbourne, in the best suburbs. And I'm talking about apartments up to $1 million. Once you get to the boutique high-end apartments, in Toorak, Brighton, Hawthorn, where you get a 3-bedder, 300 square meters, 4-car garage, high-end builder, 2 or 3 million, that's a different product. But the ones that are 80 square meters, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1-car garage, forget about those guys. There's going to be nothing happening in that market for a long time. Even though the construction costs are going through the roof, it's still, and the prices are going up slowly, there's no capital growth. The prices have been purely driven by appreciating construction materials and land costs. But it's still not significant enough to jump in my opinion. So apartments, it's a no-go zone in Melbourne, unless you want to live in the suburb, but I wouldn't invest in apartments. So what's the risk of buying an investment property in a disadvantaged area? See, when you buy in-house and land estates and you have cheap rental, you can attract cheap tenants. So cheap rent attracts cheap tenants. And this is what happens to a lot of people. They live in Melbourne. Let's say you're living in Cheltenham and you buy a house, an investment property in Berwick, in the new house and land estate for $500,000, and you're getting $400 a week rental. This is the problem. These tenants will destroy your property. And I see this all the time. The number one emotional game-changing ending event for investors is that the tenant destroys your property and leaves it a complete mess. They do a runner. They get banned from renting, but they always find their way back. They rent through other people. They rent through friends. They put rents under the family name. But I've seen time and time again, this is one of my friend's property, and she sent me these photos of a person that she had in a house in an okay area. It was a really cheap house, and he was one person, by the way, did this, and he was drinking a lot of alcohol. Now that's a lot of alcohol to drink. Ironically, when they evicted him and they had to clean the property, they sold all these cans to recycling, and they netted around $3,500 from the aluminium from these cans. So, but the stench apparently and the work that was involved in cleaning up this property was extreme. Now, this is an extreme example. I'm not saying everyone in house or land estates will do this, but this is an extreme. This is another case. This is another case of another property that's been damaged, where people have completely destroyed the property internally through parties and just having all sorts of stuff. And I see this all the time. The most destroyed property in Melbourne is between $400 and $480 per week, 4-bedroom house in the outer estate. So you got to be aware of the fact that you have insurance, but the emotional impact of having a property damage like this can be devastating to the point where you'll never invest in another property, because your reality then is, well, this is what property investing is all about. If you have a nice townhouse in Carnegie and you're paying the rent's $1,200 a week and you get a dentist, he's not going to go and punch holes in the wall, rip out your toilet, and run down the street, is he? So dentists and doctors don't destroy properties. It's people on low income demographics that destroy properties. And it's all in the outer areas. So the reason I'm telling you this, because you've got to be aware of the fact that if you're buying a house on land estate, this could end up you. There's a percentage of people that will expect this. Also, just risk with rental increases and getting rent paid on time. A lot of these people struggle financially. The moment there's an increase in interest rates or anything happens economically in their area, petrol going up, they could just be delaying their rental payments, and then suddenly it's impacting your repayments on your property. So, it's not a good thing. So people then go, well, I'm going to buy apartments because I can only afford 600,000. I'm going to go Docklands, Southbank, buy a two-bedder. Well, the vacancy rates there are astronomically high. And as I did a video not long ago on apartments, 60% of people that have bought apartments in the last 5 years in Melbourne, 60% have sold them at a loss in the last 5 years, considering and taking into consideration capital gain tax, stamp duty, and agents' commissions. So apartments have been a disaster. Now, if you're going to hold them for 20 years, yes, it's an opportunity. And I'll tell you one thing. I actually like Docklands has been a spectacular failure in Melbourne. It doesn't work. Harbour Town is a ghost town. It's now, I reckon, 60-70% vacant. I was there the other day. There wasn't a shop open. It was completely dead. I was on a Tuesday. I was coming back from the city from my lawyer's office, and I thought I'll swing by and get some lunch. And then I was just curious to see how bad it is, because there's so many vacancies in the city. All these cafes and restaurants have shut down. The city was dead on Tuesday, by the way. My solicitor is in Collins Street, Paris End, and I parked in front of his office, which, like, it's so rare to do that. And there's no one there. It's just empty. The cafe downstairs was empty. There was no people in the office. It was on, no one wants to be in the city anymore. But going back to Docklands, I actually think Docklands, it's here to stay forever. I think in 50 years, it's going to be amazing. Okay, so if you want to buy something, and I'm not telling you to buy anything, okay, so don't send me emails, but if you wanted to pick up something waterfront, maybe a penthouse, 3-bedder, don't buy 2-bedders ever or 1-bedder, buy 3-bedroom only apartments in Docklands, because they're very rare, with 2 car spaces, 130 square meters, with views over the burst, overlooking the city that can't be built out. Maybe this could be the bottom point in time, and maybe it's a good idea to buy something. And I'm actually looking to buy something now in Docklands to keep indefinitely for future generations, because let's face it, Melbourne's not going to disappear anytime soon. It's going to be a huge city eventually, and these apartments are going to be absolute waterfront. So eventually, like 50 years from now, people are going, I can't believe my grandfather bought this for, for $1 million. They'll be worth like millions, like in New York. Now it's a complete disaster. They're all empty. There's no lights on at night. If you want to know what a ghost town looks like, go to Docklands and Southbank at night. Look up on these buildings, and there's like 10 lights on. Where are the rest of the people? But they're not using lights. So the whole area is dead. It's dead as disco. Now, house and land, there's a couple of things with house and land. The blocks are getting smaller. They're shrinking. I remember when house and land estates where you have 700 to 1,000 square meters of land. That's why you go out there, right? And because land became expensive, even on the fringes, what's happening is the houses are getting bigger. They're going from 20 squares to 30 to 40 squares, and the blocks are shrinking. And now it's virtually, I don't even know it's a house to land anymore, because they're almost like townhouses. You've got 3 meters at the back of your backyard. I mean, it's not even a backyard. Some of the new estates, the roofs at the back, literally the distance is like 2 or 3 meters. So, there's no pools anymore. Also, the suburbs are getting very hot in the summer because there's no trees, there's no wind, and the rooftops are black. The temperature is 5 degrees higher than the surrounding areas. So they're getting overheated. Therefore, people's electrical bills are going through the roof because they're putting the air conditioning all the time. And there's no cafe, there's no restaurant, there's nothing. You're just walking around, you walk in any direction for half an hour, you end up in someone else's front, yard with a house that looks exactly like your house. So, it's a bit of a disaster, guys. What can I tell you? It's not a good thing. From a functionality perspective, I'm working out words now. A functionality perspective, from a aesthetic perspective, and also we have all the gangs and all the issues in Melton and Sunbury. Now, I did a video on Trigonina and Tenant back in, this is in 23, and talk about the house and land trap. Now watch that video if you want to know more about how bad things are in Melbourne. And nothing's really changed, guys, in those 2 years. And I was completely right about those areas underperforming. So if you check out the video, if you want to know more, that's a really good video. And it shows you video footage of locals living in these estates complaining about how bad it is. Now, the number one worst estate in Melbourne is Thornhill Park. It's so bad, I had to go out there myself because I didn't believe the stories. And I went out there and I was, well, there's nothing there. So the houses are pretty because you've got Metricon, you've got the biggest builders in Australia building in those suburbs. So the boulevards are sprinkled with really beautiful homes that are phenomenal. But there's no amenities. There is nothing in this suburb. I can't believe the council actually allowed this suburb to be built. And don't take my word for it. We're going to watch a video right now from the Current Affairs. You know your suburb is bad if it ends up from Current Affairs and it says the suburb with nothing. And we're going to watch this video about locals talking about how they bought into this area, they were sold this idea by the developers, and the reality was completely different. Check out this video now.
Picture this, a suburb just outside of one of our biggest capital cities with nothing, no medical centre, no public transport and not a supermarket in sight. Welcome to Thornhill Park.
We have no public transport.
We have no medical centre.
We don't have one shop here. A high school would be great.
Thornhill Park. It's about a 40-minute drive from the centre of Melbourne, and it's a place where residents come only to have their dream lifestyles hit a wall.
We'd sort of just been at a standstill for a very long time.
Since 2015, the suburb in Melbourne's outer west was advertised by developers as accessible and convenient. But instead, families see it as a place with
no future.
I feel like I'm living in a developing country.
We're asking for what I believe are just basic human rights.
There's 6,500 residents who call this suburb home. Yet there's no high school, no supermarket, no pharmacy, no doctor's surgery, no restaurants, no gym, no police station. There's not even a milk bar. So, what is there?
There is nothing.
Nothing?
Priya and her husband Gagandeep moved into Thornhill Park 18 months ago.
This is our first house, first home. Not happy at all. Always begging to please sell this house so we can find a better place.
Their biggest gripe, this dirt road.
If they ever fix this road, we can actually save our 20 minutes to go back to the freeway from the back roads.
The young parents say if you can't drive a car, you're stranded in Thornhill Park because the trains don't stop and the buses don't come.
Can't even catch a bus because we don't have a bus. Can't catch a train because we don't have a train station.
Nathan Burns-Gramont bought here 7 years ago. He loves the community but loathes the lifestyle.
We're fighting as hard as we can as a community, but we just keep getting kicked back down to the ground.
According to these families, the place is almost unlivable.
I dropped my husband at Cobblebank train station. He got himself to work in Melbourne CBD before I had even made it home to Thornhill Park.
That's because there's no convenient way in and out of the suburb. An advertised overpass is yet to be built. Families are forced to drive backwards out of town just to go forwards. And it's a U-turn that can take up to half an hour. Even delivery drivers have given Thornhill Park a wide berth.
Menu Log struggle to come here. Uber Eats, forget about it. Local pizza stores down in Melton won't come here because of the length it takes to do a U-turn.
Since its inception more than 7 years ago, the suburbs quickly become a paradise lost. All that was advertised, not yet delivered. The medical centre's apparently getting built. The kindergarten is opening soon. The proposed supermarket has recently been downgraded to a mini-mart, and land has been fenced off in the so-called Central Square ever since we visited last year. Since our report in June 2022, all these residents have got is a primary school and a childcare centre.
We've now been classified as a city of Melbourne also, but still being treated like a rural area.
I certainly feel for them.
Steve McGee is the MP for Melton.
There's nothing planned for a train station to come right now, and there's no funding for a train station right now.
As for an overpass...
Yes, it will be years away. There were never commitments made, well, in particular the train station, never commitments made by the state government, and unfortunately developers don't build train stations and overpasses onto freeways.
One of the 6 developers involved in Thornhill Park is Welco, founded by former Essendon footballer Andrew Welsh.
It's performed, really well for us, Thornhill Park, this year.
In a statement to A Current Affair, Welco said all the information it's provided has been accurate.
Welco has relied on the government's advice from the beginning of its Thornhill Park development, informing prospective purchasers of the government's plans and specifically noting that actual delivery of both the train station and freeway interchange is solely within the government's control.
Welco say marketing materials included disclaimers that timeframes were indicative only and subject to change.
And if government don't get developers to set aside land for infrastructure, then there's no potential to build a train station.
Steve's advice to would-be buyers is to get concrete timeframes from developers.
I think developers promote their development in the best possible way they can with the most amount of selling points that they can. I think people buying in should just make sure that developers in their commitment have given timeframes and then follow up with the respective government levels.
For now, these residents will have to settle for the only trader in town. At least he comes to them.
I just want to get out of here.
And a shopping square is expected to be built by the end of the year. That still seems a long way off.
So how was that? Exactly what I said. It's a suburb with nothing. Now, these people have put their life savings into these estates. And let's face it, the houses are quite good. New houses are large. They're very beautiful. Even the builders range models are nice. Okay. And, if you're living in Richmond in a little, single front of Victoria, and you go to the burbs and you look at a 35 square, 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom, entry-level, property, it looks amazing. But what are you going to do? These people get trapped. It takes an hour to get to this. So let's look at the lifestyle triangle. It's the worst ever. And this is the next suburb is, by the way, also, I'm going to show you a video in a second. So what happens is that people they buy these house and land package for $750. It takes an hour to get to the city. It takes an hour to get back because it's all peak hour traffic, one road, right? The schools are average in the area to bad, all right? Because you can't have good schools in a new area. No matter, you can't have that culture of St. Kevin's or Scotch College or those the schools that are 100 years old. So schools are bad, right? So you're working in the city, that's fine. But then you come home, by the time you get home for an hour in traffic, you're just wrecked, especially in the summer. You're wrecked, you're angry, and you get home, and there's nothing to do because even if you go outside of your house, it's hot and there's no cafes, nothing to do. You're just in the middle of cow paddocks with little creeks. That's it. So it's very dysfunctional. In fact, there's a new house and land estate now in Melbourne, which is being built, which is probably the worst area I would ever recommend you not invest in Melbourne. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but don't invest there. And I want to show you a quick video of this new suburb that has just been approved by the Labor government. And there's going to be 50,000 people moving into this area. Check out this video.
The state government has given the green light to a mammoth new housing development in Melbourne's outer north, set to provide homes for 50,000 people. But critics say with poor roads and no hospitals or train stations, it will put crippling pressure on already strained infrastructure.
The green tick for a big green parcel of land, clearing the way for a mega suburb.
15,000 more homes for Victorians.
Squeezed between Beveridge and Wallen, the precinct will house almost 50,000 people, 8 new schools, 4 town halls, shopping centres and enough parks and reserves to fill 13 MCGs. But adding an additional train station to the laundry list is a bridge too far.
Essential infrastructure and services will be delivered as that community grows.
It doesn't even have a train station and they want to put 50,000 more people above Beveridge.
The state government admits adding that many new homes will put immense pressure on congested roads. Work has already begun on upgrading flow over and onto the Hume Freeway. If it's enough, remains to be seen.
This is the area that desperately needs infrastructure, not 10 years after people move in.
The Planning Minister also gave the tick of approval to a new quarry on the outskirts of the precinct, knocked back twice by council because of concerns about air quality and traffic. The Minister doesn't want to call a quarry home herself.
Well, I don't think it's a question of would I live there.
But claims it'll cut costs for those who want to.
Having a quarry close to demand means that you can deliver construction materials. They can be cheaper.
More than $1 million has been spent campaigning against it. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
All right, cool. So you can see there, this is the worst single area in Melbourne to invest in, which is, I would say, the whole area around Beveridge. So just between Thornhill Park and Wallen Wollert, straight up north from Melbourne. Probably the worst area. The problem is they're not building roads fast enough to connect all these people that live out there. And a lot of migrants, by the way, when they come over from different countries, especially if you're coming from India and Pakistan, where properties are very small and you have multiple families living in tiny areas, when you see these properties for the first time in Australia, I mean, it's a shock. They're like castles, right? And they look beautiful. The problem is you've come to this country for better lifestyle. And by the way, I'm a migrant from Poland. I wasn't born in Australia. I came to Australia when I was 9 from Poland. We escaped communism. So I'm all for migration, maybe not the volume maybe now. That's another argument. I don't want to get political. If you're building these properties out there, you've got to allow for infrastructure, transport, trains, train stations, highways to make the commute to the city in about half an hour or less. You can't have people trapped in traffic for an hour each day, which is 2 hours a day, 10 hours per week. This is one of the worst things, and no one's talking about a solution. And there is no solutions because it costs billions of dollars to build roads, billions, and they always run over budget. So the number one worst area that I would recommend you never invest in Melbourne is Beveridge, which is out of north and eventually will house 50,000 people. So it's going to be a complete disaster. You know, it's an area that's straight up north. Don't even invest in the north, guys. So you can see that these are the so-called 3 growth corridors. Okay, the north is a complete disaster because, see, if you're living in Casey, which is Berwick and Pakenham, at least from Berwick you can drive down to Frankston and go to the beach, right? And then you've got Frankston, Mornington Peninsula, you've got Mount Martha, all those cafes, restaurants. So even though you're in the middle of a suburb, and Berwick's fine, there's Old Berwick and New Berwick, but let's say you're in New Berwick, right? You're just in boring suburbia, everyone's in a $600,000 to $1 million home, right? Boring houses, 4x2s, right? So what, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, you're actually in an area like Frankston South, Mornington Peninsula. You can actually enjoy yourself, but if you're north, there's nothing there. You've got to go back to the city. Like, you're actually trapped in the middle of cow paddocks in every direction. There is actually nothing out there. Like, it's going to take centuries for that area to be attractive. So if you're going to invest in house and land, the number one is to do infill areas, which I'm about to cover. But number two, don't even go north and don't go west. It's crazy because there's nothing out there. Like, you can't even leave your house and go anywhere for the day. You've got to drive back to the city or go to the eastern suburbs across the other side of the city. It makes sense, yeah. It's logical because this is the thing. So house and land estates in these growth corridors are very dysfunctional. Now, there's 504 house and land estates in kind of between Wallen and Beveridge, and they're going to be complete disasters. I mean, this is going to be areas that are going to be targeted by the lowest income demographic new migrants. You're going to have gangs. You're going to have dysfunctional society basically living there. No capital growth potential, very minimum. and no resale potential. That's the other thing. If you jump onto realestate.com and you look up the amount of properties that are for sale in these suburbs, it's in the hundreds and hundreds, and you cannot differentiate them because no one wants a 3-year-old, A.V. Jennings home. People buy there off the plan as first home buyers. So there's no secondary market for these properties either. So basically, the areas to avoid, in my opinion, and there's different reasons, Cranbourne East for crime, Docklands and West Melbourne as in west of Melbourne, and Thornhill Park. These are the worst areas in Melbourne. This is just Google. If you just Google Melbourne's worst house and land estates, they come up. Don't trust me. Just go into Google and trust Google. So these are the top 10 worst house and land estates based on number 1 being the worst, number 10 being really bad, but still, in top 10. So it's all in the North Growth Corridor. So Thornhill Park, number 1, without question. Anything around Thornhill Park. They can name it whatever they want. They can name it Toorak Park. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing there. Donnybrook, complete disaster. Wallen, Beveridge is a complete disaster. Mickleham, Wallen, Craigieburn. And then the Melton Growth Corridor, right? Melton's got all the gangs macheting each other. Sunbury, Melton North, Melton. Now, if you live there, don't email me. I'm talking about capital growth potential. Right? I don't want emails from people, we live in Melton, it's been safe. We've never seen anything, apart from the 2 kids that got hacked on the weekend with machetes. I don't care. I'm here to show you how to make money. I'm not here to talk about social challenges that Melbourne's experiencing. That's a different channel. So I'm just here to show you where to put your money and which areas not to put your money in. The problem with these areas is always, if you're building something on the fringes of a suburb, you don't know what's going to be built next to you in the future. It could be a completely superior suburb, or it could be housing commission. So you never want to be in a situation where you're buying house and land estates on the fringes of a city, and beyond that is cow paddocks or bush. That's the worst thing you can ever do as in terms of your due diligence and research. You want to buy in areas that are infill areas surrounded by areas that are already established for more than 30 or 40 or 50 years. And there's a finite amount of properties in there. So this is an example in Keilor Street in Cheltenham. The developers there is R-Corp, and I sold a lot of properties there, which was in Keilor Street. And these were house and land and townhouses. And there were 60% were sold to locals. And you can see that Cheltenham's an old area, built up in the 50s and 60s. You've got Southland Shopping Centre around the corner. This is just off Warrigal Road on Keilor Street. You can check it out anytime you like. And I'm not saying this is the best estate. I'm just saying it's an infill. You can see the size of the block there. And once this block was sold, all right, it was just under 300 properties. That's it. Okay, so you can just drive 10 minutes down the road and have coffee. You can go to Southland Shopping Centre. You're 15 minutes from the beach. You've got really good schools. You've got Mentone Grammar, St. Bede's in Mentone. You've got all the private schools, Anglican schools, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm saying is, don't buy this ever. Buy these ones that are infill areas. They're going to give you more capital growth. And usually the locals snap up a large percentage of them as well because they know how good the area is. So a lot of the biggest lie we have in this industry is that population growth creates capital growth. It doesn't. This is Trigonina 2011, 166,000 people. In 2016, 221,000 people, 33.7% population growth, which is off the charts, just so you know. Most countries are growing by 2 to 3% population. So 33% growth in 5 years is insane, and it went from that to that. But so what? It's still Trigonina. There's nothing in Trigonina. There's nothing there. It's just houses. It's bad planning. So I'm not judging you for living in Trigonina. I'm just saying whoever designed it wasn't thinking a lot about functioning parks and community centres, shopping strips, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's a bad design. So the biggest challenge faced also by new house and land estates is default in mortgages. The biggest mortgage defaults happen in the house and land estates. So, for example, in Wyndham was the number 1 suburb in Melbourne just after 2000 this is also subprime fallout, and also just after COVID-19, I was watching these areas and they had massive defaults in new house and land estates because people go all in and then something happens in the industry. And when you buy a house, you usually get 2 new cars. You go to Harvey Norman when you get your 5 years, interest deferred furniture and couches and plasma screens. And if anything happens, they're living from paycheck to paycheck. If anything happens economically, or if one party loses their job, or interest rates just shoot up beyond norm, they fall behind, and before you know it, their water level goes from here to there, and they're financially gone. So, places like Wyndham, Casey, Whittlesea, Walloon, Bacchus Marsh, Melton, and Boroondara with the highest mortgage deferrals compared to the national average. So you can see that, and this is by volume, by the way. So you can see this is a heat map, mortgages by default. Some of these areas had 60% of properties 3 months in arrears. Now, mortgage stress by definition is a property or a person that hasn't paid their mortgage over 3 months, and by definition, the banks can seize their property. Now, the reality is there's thousands of them defaulting. The banks will usually give you leeway and they'll give you time to catch up. But it's still not a good thing because there's going to be a lot of properties fire sold and you won't be able to get good capital growth. So you can see that the house and land estates are completely dominating the most mortgage stressed properties. The outer suburbs have the worst stress levels with 64% borrowers in dire straits in the Bruce electorate, and according to Labor covering Narre Warren. And it talks about Melbourne's North, Craigieburn again, in 63.3% mortgage stress. So these are the worst suburbs by postcode that had the highest number of households in mortgage stress. And you can get this data if you're a broker, if you're working in banking, you can get this data very easily. So Fountain Gate, Narre Warren South. This is the postcode 3805. A number of households in stress, 8,919. It's a lot of houses. Berwick and surrounding suburbs, 8,292. Hoppers Crossing, Tunny, Trigonina, 7,972. Then you've got Ballarat, Barrett North, the whole regional kind of area, Mount Pleasant, etc., 7.5 grand. Sydenham is also 7,279. And then you got Darabit, Poycook, Werribee, 6,399. Craigieburn and surrounding suburbs, including Mickleham, Roxburgh Park, Donnybrook, 6,279. Pakenham Upper, 6,218. And then you got Cranbourne East, Cranbourne North, Cranbourne South, West, Doveton, Meadows, Junction Village, Skye, and then finally Roeville, 5.5. 70,000 people or households with mortgage stress, which is really high. And this was at the peak of the interest rate cycle. We had 13 increases in 13 months virtually, and now it's coming down a little bit. So the pressure is easing now, but this is what happens in these estates. Now, why am I telling you this? Once again, I'm not here for social commentary. I'm just telling you simply because a lot of these properties will be fire sold, and if there's a lot of them on the market at the same time, you've got hundreds of options. You won't get good capital growth when you're selling your property because people are fire selling their stock. And this wouldn't happen in a normal suburb like Balmoral, for example, or in a normal suburb in Melbourne like Box Hill. It just doesn't happen. Most properties are paid off. So you got to understand one thing is that the highest population growth, this is from government data for Victoria, data in the future, and this is from population growth projections from 21 to 2036. So Wyndham is number one, but it has the highest mortgage default rates. Casey's number two, and then Melton. So just because you got high population growth, a lot of people moving to an area, doesn't guarantee capital growth because you have these inherent issues with the demographics. It's all about the demographics. Now, Melbourne is apartments in Melbourne, so central business district, then you have all the other areas. But these are the worst ones, right? Which is I recommend you stay away from. And the other reason is that these developers, which is I would say about 10 developers that control most of Melbourne house and land estates. One of the biggest one is Pete, Land Lease, Stockland. They hold thousands of blocks at any time, and they release them as the market conditions improve and change. But the problem is they hold sometimes up to 20 years of blocks in their books before they can release them. They don't release them at the same time because the market will plummet. So they stage release and they price control these estates. You can check this out. These companies are listed on the stock exchange and there's public disclosure requirements. So you can just, look up Sunland, Mirvac and see how many thousands of blocks they're holding in each suburb. You want to invest in estates where no one's holding any land in virtually. That's my number one thing. So 6 reasons why Melbourne house and land packages continue to underperform. Number one, okay, so this is why bad estates exist, and this is what you want to stay away from, and this is the reason why. Because you have low socioeconomic demographics. They tend to buy and reside in the area, tends to result in higher crime levels, high level of domestic violence, high level of burglaries and theft, road rage, gangs and violence, right? Which is a fact. Melton, all the gangs up there, right? Number two, social issues associated with isolation and lack of community. It's because of this poor planning that these kids are roaming the streets at night, getting into trouble, and that creates the bad stigma for the suburb. So it's not their fault. No one was born a criminal. You're made into a criminal through your environment, and that's the thing. And it's just the government letting us down with poor planning. It's the planning minister's responsibility. It's poor planning of infrastructure and transport amenities in new house and land estates that is creating this divide between society and between the upper and middle class and the lower class. So we have lack of government planning and access to the city. It takes years in Melbourne to build a freeway or a highway or a tunnel or something that will make it easier for people to commute from these outer states to the city. Lack of lifestyle shopping strips, parks and amenities. There's no parks, there's no public areas, and the only thing is a shopping centre, and they're really bad and boring, So the best shopping centres are actually probably Southland. I don't like Southland that much, it's a bit old now, but Chatson's too big. But I like Doncaster shopping centre, probably the best in Melbourne. It's boutiquey, and it's in a really nice area, and there's very good income demographics there. The outer shopping centres in the outer areas, that's horrible. Also, really bad schools, non-existent schools and secondary schools, right? That's the other thing. And there's no hospitals. You got to go back to the city virtually if anything happens. So because of that, your lifestyle triangle is very low. And because of that, the last property cycle we had, over 10 years, these were the lowest capital growth areas. So this is a measure of the property cycle going from 12 all the way around the clock. And the last time that happened, this is 10 years of capital growth from the entire property cycle beginning to end, which is nearly 10 years ago now. So the lowest capital growth area was Melton, surprise, surprise, which I talked about before. All the gangs are there. There's no amenities. It's in the middle of nowhere, right? Then you have places like Wyndham, obviously, which we talked about, 3.2% capital growth, average over 10 years, which is just inflation. Now, you can't lose money on the house and land. Inflation and bureaucracy and fees associated with building and the land will drag up the price by 2 or 3% per year. So, providing you can outperform inflation by 1%, you're still in front. So it's hard to lose money on house and land unless you fire sell at the worst possible time. If you buy and hold long term, but that's fine. But we're here to make 10% growth per year. We're not here to wait for, you don't want to be 80 before you have your 10 properties. You want to accumulate your properties quickly and leapfrog from the equity from one property to another. You're not going to do that 3% per year. It's just going to be a waste of time. You might as well do shares or crypto or something else. Point Cook is another area, Melton, Tenant, St Albans, all the normal suburbs that I teach people to stay away from. Williams Landing, terrible area. Don't invest there ever. There's a lot of areas that are better than that. So what makes a good house and land estate? It must be an infill area, okay? It's surrounded by prestigious and desirable suburbs, schools and infrastructure. Never buy house and land packages on the fringes of major capital cities. Remember the golden rule. Now, this is an example of a great house and land estate. It's Huntingdale Place Estate in Ivanhoe. Ivanhoe is a great suburb. By the way, I have no properties there to sell. I'm just saying it's a great estate. It's in 48 to 56 Edwin Street, Ivanhoe. And Ivanhoe is a great suburb, upper middle class. You've got really good properties there. And so if you look at the lifestyle triangle, let's say you're living there, for example, and by the way, I've got no properties there to offer you. I'm just saying objectively, imagine you're living in Ivanhoe. You work at the Austin Hospital, right? You're a nurse, okay? And then your kids go to Ivanhoe Grammar. Well, you got 3 minutes to school, 5 minutes home. Your lifestyle triangle is amazing. Cafes, restaurants galore, shopping strips, hundreds of places you can do stuff, parks. It's a phenomenal suburb. Ivanhoe, Eaglemont, all those areas, really nice green suburbs, very tightly held, very low crime, very high income demographics. So therefore, your lifestyle triangle will be very high. Therefore, people pay a premium for that as well. Another example I mentioned before, this is sold out years ago, but this is an example I was involved with 10 years ago. Central Park, in Keilor Street in Cheltenham. Another example, Cheltenham's a great suburb. There's Balmoral, number one, then Mentone and Cheltenham. And there's Cheltenham over the highway, on the beach side of the highway. Great suburb, great capital growth potential. Another estate that I did in 21 was Oakleigh South. Oakleigh South is really Clayton. It's nothing special. When I saw this estate, and I'm going to show you a real case scenario, because people ask me sometimes when I talk about these estates, what has been my result in these estates? Well, let me show you some real information. This is 10 Elvina Street in Oakleigh South, Elvina Street. I sourced a lot of properties in this in 21. There were house and land estates, and there was a number. This is the whole plan of subdivision. So it's a new house and land estate. It's a little suburb being built inside Oakleigh South. Okay, so you had a lot of properties, and there was a combination of 2, 3, and 4 bedroom properties. There were townhouses, which were 2 and 3 and 4 bedroom, house and land, and up to 5 bedroom houses. Very nice. It was a brand new estate, but inside Oakleigh South. Oakleigh South is very well located. You've got Monash University in Clayton, obviously around the corner, Chatston Shopping Centre down the road. You're in the southeast part of Melbourne, so you can go to the beach. You can go to like Mentone, all those areas, and cut across. Now, this is a house and land package, and they look amazing. All of them look amazing. Let's face it. Doesn't matter where you buy these days. The builders do an amazing job. Okay, these are actual artist impressions of the internals so they look phenomenal. But the area Oakleigh's phenomenal. I mean, the Oakleigh has become mini Lygon Street. The cafes and restaurants in Oakleigh now, the nightlife is amazing. The Greeks there have done an amazing job, and the Greeks love their nightlife, like the Italians and the Polish people. We all love our cappuccinos at night and having coffee and catching up with friends and family in restaurants. So the Greeks there, which dominate Oakleigh, and you've got Oakleigh has the Greek school there as well. They've done an amazing job there at really bringing up an area that was 15 years ago was dead quiet. And because of that, it's attracting a lot of younger people, and it's well located. The estate was called the Mara. So typical house and land, you got your 2-car garage, open plan living, courtyard around the property, and then you've got a living area downstairs, and then 4 bedrooms upstairs with 3 bathrooms. Right, it's very basic, typical configuration of a house. So the house is nothing special, guys. It's big, yes, it's new, but it's the area. It's the area that the growth has. And I'll show you the growth in a second. There's another configuration, right? 2-car garage, open plan living. You've got a little courtyard on the side, and upstairs master bedroom, built-in robes, ensuite, and 2 other bedrooms, right? Nothing special in terms of plans. You can get this in Point Cook, Trigonina, Tunneat, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and then you got a 2-car garage, right? These are the ones that I sold in the area. Right, these are the actual numbers. There's about 80 of them, I think, in there. Right, so these are the actual ones I sold. These are the price that I sold them for. I'm going to show you the money: 900,000, 960. This is in 21. Now they are now valued at 1.3 million. So they went up 100 grand every year. In fact, this is a client of mine, Janet from Melbourne, and she purchased, I look after her. So I do a lot of work with private clients, and she's purchased 2 properties in 3 years. Her goal is to buy a lot more. And this is an email that she sent me. She was one of the people that bought in Amara. Hey, Konrad, just thanks for checking in. I attached 2 photos myself to choose from. Glad to be testimonial. For your information, we bought Amara 838,000, refined to CBA 1.315 million valuation within 1 year. 1 year. So from 838 to 1.31. Heidelberg Townhouse, we got both government stamp duty concessions and developer rebate. So we're not paying stamp duty and almost got 5,000 left in cash. So like $500,450, what is it? Nearly $500,000, just under, in 12 months. Then we refinanced that property. So she bought this property here, and then she bought number 2 in Swanson Street in Heidelberg Heights for $895, and no stamp duty was payable. The developer gave a rebate, the government gave a rebate. So we're getting an equity release to buy one from another, and that's what I do with my clients. They buy a property, start off with, get the equity, and they refinance and go and keep going and buying more properties and having really big buffers in place as well in case interest rates go up or something happens. And I'm talking about $100,000, $200,000 buffer. So the goal is to get 8 properties in 10 years, and I'm sure we're going to get there. Janet's a very ambitious person. So these are the best, and there's many case studies like this I'll show you at the end of my clients buying 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 properties in the last 12 years. These are the best new house to land estates in Melbourne. I'm not going to cover each one of them because I'll be here for 3 hours. You're going to switch off. So I'm going to cover all of them just by name. You can do your own research. And I'm going to open up number 3, 2, and 1 in more detail and show you what they are. So number 10 is Wantirna. Wantirna is a great suburb. Middle-class Australia, boring suburb by definition. Very green, never been a cheap area, never been any crime-ridden issue. Just normal Australians living there, very well built up, very green, a lot of gum trees, big blocks, good schools, okay, good to okay schools, but, very well located. So number 10 is Stockdale Oak Place, Wantirna. Waverley One Estate in Wantirna South. Lilydale, people laugh, well, Lilydale's so far out. No, Lilydale's good. Kingsley Estate, Wantirna South Estate, Wantirna South. Tunstall Village Estate, Nuttawading. And then you've got Wantirna again. Serenity Estate in Vermont South. Vermont South, once again, used to be the outskirts of Melbourne in the 50s and 60s, used to be all orchards. Huge blocks, very, very tightly held, great suburb, great shopping, very green, it's a lifestyle area. So Serenity, definitely Vermont South, number 4. Number 3 is Waverley Woods Estate in Mulgrave. I remember Mulgrave used to be so rough 25 years ago. You get a house for 180,000 there. No one wants to live there. But Mulgrave is well located. Clayton's around the corner. You're close to Chatston Shopping Centre. It's really come up well. And I'll show you that estate in a second. Then you have East Keilor, great area. East Keilor is not Keilor, by the way, 2 different suburbs. East Keilor is virtually Essendon. So Rosemont Estate in East Keilor. And the number 1 estate in Melbourne right now, in my opinion, is Docklands Haven in Altona North. And I'll show you why. So I'm going to unpack each estate to show you what's possible in each estate. And I actually have access to all these estates as an agent. I can sell in all of them. So if you want to buy one of these, feel free to give me a call and I can help you choose and pick the best one. So number 3 for Melbourne's best new house or land estate. I feel like David Letterman doing the top 10 list. Rosemont's fantastic. Keilor East, great suburb. Now, this is a cool estate because it's on the edge of a hill overlooking a creek, overlooking the city. Very cool design. So you have 42 modern townhouses in a hidden pocket of East Keilor, nestled by the serene Steel Creek. It's thoroughly positioned in the site's natural undulating landscape. These homes feature individual entrances, brick facades, sophisticated materials, lush landscaping, set off Craig Street. It's the most secluded location, adds extra layer of security. It's very private there, with a future close-knit community, with great education, health, dining, shopping and transport. You've got Essendon Mini Ponds next door, all the cafes, restaurants, the river there, Essendon Grammar, all the schools in Essendon, phenomenal, some of the best schools in Melbourne. So, so this is think about the lifestyle triangle, right? You've got the area, you've got school zone, 4-minute drive to Keilor High Primary School and Rosehill Secondary School. 5 minutes to Essendon Grammar, right? Top private school in Melbourne. You've got the bus going to the city. You've got Essendon Airport. You've got 12 minutes from Melbourne Airport. Shopping. Well, you've got Needry Shopping Centre. You've got DFO, Essendon, Westfield Airport West Shopping Centre. You got shops everywhere, mini ponds in Essendon. And then you've got massive amounts of parks. And then you've got also medical centres everywhere throughout Essendon, Needry, Keilor East. So you have a very established area. So in terms of, the proximity to the city, it's all there. It's all built up. It's just one infill area. And these are the houses there. It's considered a house to land package because even though they're townhouses, they're one-part contracts, it's not just a 3 or 4 in a row. It's a whole estate with common driveways. So it's still, there's 2 levels and 3 levels. Beautiful properties, very private. Reminds me of the Mirvac Estates of Heatherton. Very well designed architecturally, lots of light, very good kitchens, very good level of fixtures and finishings. So their architectural design, they look stunning inside. Here's an example, townhouse number 2, for example. So you have tandem car park, open plan living. You've got a courtyard. You've got another car space off the street in your driveway, and then upstairs you've got the master bedroom with a balcony. And then you have 3 other bedrooms, and then you've got your ensuite. So this is the master bedroom, I should say, walk-in robes, and an ensuite is another bed. There's a living area. It could also be the master bedroom, probably living area, and then 2 other bedrooms. So, really good configuration. Here's another one, for example, townhouse number 10, different configuration. You've got a double garage, study downstairs, and then you've got a laundry, a proper walk-in laundry. Then in the first level, you have the master bedroom, walk-in robe, ensuite. Then you've got 2 other bedrooms with a common ensuite. And then upstairs, you've got the living and dining area and another bedroom. So, really good designs. Some of them are facing the creek. They're on the first row of properties. In terms of their price point, you're looking at, probably the cheapest one would be 1.15, and then the most expensive ones would be the larger properties, which would be 1.55. And in the middle you're looking at 1.2 million. So very good. And it's not the plan. It's a house and land estate, phenomenal area. So if you want to reserve one of these, if you're interested in finding out more, feel free to make contact with me and I'll send you the information. Number 2, best house and land estate is Waverley Woods in Mulgrave. I never thought I'd mention the word Mulgrave in best area, but it is. It's 27, once again, 27 exclusive homes in the sought after suburb of Mulgrave, and it's really good design. This is more of a traditional design that it feels like a house and land estate. They're larger homes targeting family areas. And once again, let's think about, the lifestyle triangle. So you have Waverley Woods, which is a great area, very green. Mulgrave's been very green always, very established trees. Wide streets, very established trees, very good parks. School zone. So you have Rosewood Down Primary School, Wellington Secondary College, and Monash University Clayton campus, which I used to go to, which is a nightmare. The Clayton campus is so large, it's got its own bus stops and everything. It's crazy. It's like a whole suburb. But there's thousands of people living there, so you're always going to have a pool of renters. You've got the bus, you've got the train, you've got everything. Shopping, Waverley Garden Shopping Centre, and then you've got IKEA, and then you've got Southland Shopping Centre, Stud Park Shopping Centre. You've got shopping centres in every direction from that one suburb. And then you've got massive amounts of parks and medical centres everywhere, from Monash Medical Centre to Mulgrave Private Hospital. So think about the lifestyle triangle. You can work, live, and go to send your kids to school in that area, and you've got an extremely good lifestyle. And that's what it looks like. So it's definitely a house and land estate, but it's in the infill area in Mulgrave. So this is why you're going to get 6, 7, 8% growth on these properties. And some years you'll make 100 grand, 200 grand on these properties if we're at the peak of the cycle. So, it's definitely something worth considering buying. They look stunning inside, like every house and land estate now. Everything looks it's very competitive out there. They're really putting in a lot of things, bells and whistles, marble finishing, splashbacks, high ceilings, ducted air conditioning. Like the amount of amenities you get now, fixtures and fittings, is crazy in terms of new designs. I mean, they look stunning. So I'm not having a go at the actual design of the house itself. The dysfunctionality of new estates is the actual suburb design, which has let us down, and also because it's so far away from amenities. And this is another, the bathroom. And there's a common park there as well. One of the blocks was left over. And this is a good thing because when you have a new estate, if you have children, which new house and land estates attract a lot of children, that's why they call them nappy valleys, because there's nappies in the bin everywhere. You're going to go to this little park there, and then you're going to meet the locals, because they'll say, "Oh, do you live here?" "Yeah, we just live in number 5. "Oh, we live in number 7. Bang, you automatically become part of the community, right? So because it's so small and it's so boutique-y, people do actually talk to each other. There's not going to be any crime. The properties are too expensive. The rent's going to be $800 to $900 a week. So you're going to filter out all the actual problematic income demographics. There's no one's going to be, Mulgrave is going to be, it's a very safe middle-class suburb. But once again, it's an infill area in a very established suburb of Mulgrave. It's not something on the fringes of Melbourne. It's surrounded by, everything that's established. So in terms of property prices, the biggest properties there are 1.7 million. And they're large houses, You're looking at double garage, bedroom downstairs, open plan living, and then 3 bedrooms upstairs with a study or a breakout area, very substantial. You're looking at 270 square meters. I mean, it's 27 squares. So, but you can see how limited the volume is. That's lot number 1. Lot number 4, 1.88 million. Lot number 12, 1.93 million. Lot number 13, 1.84 million. Lot number 18, 1.39. See, that's a good investment property. Some of the smaller ones will attract tenants. You're still getting, 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 3 car spaces, including a side-by-side garage. So that's the estate there. And once they're sold, they're sold. But that's a really good estate because you're surrounded by everything: transport, schools, restaurants, amenities, medical, universities, business centres and parks everywhere. So not only is the industrial estates in Waverley and surrounding suburbs, there's massive business parks there with thousands of businesses, marketing, accounting firms, all working there. You got a house and land estate. There's a central little park there. And once these are all sold, that's it. In every direction, there is no more land left. So this is what you want to look for. If you're looking, and this can be in Melbourne, in Sydney, in Brisbane, that's what you want to buy into when you're buying house and land estates. Now, it is expensive. I'm not saying it's cheap, but it is what it is. These are the prices for the whole thing. So if you want to reserve one of these, I think the cheapest one is 1.395, which is a 3-bedroom plus study. That's a great investment property. Buying the cheapest for investing is actually the best because everything else is more expensive. So valuations tend to go up even higher. If you get the most expensive property, that's good to live in because they're the biggest, but that's the worst to buy for investment because you're the market maker. There's no one below you in the estate and there might not be any comparable sales. So getting the cheapest, once again, in a new house or land estate like this, where it's boutique-y, from my experience, has been the best investment option ever because all the others drag up the prices and you've got the smallest, which means you get the best rental yield and you get all the depreciation and tax benefits associated with buying a new property. So for 1.395, it's a great buy, which is number 18. So if you're interested in any of these, make contact with me, email me or give me a call and I can give you more information about it. Number 1 is definitely Altona Haven in Altona North. Now, I was a big fan of Altona North. 12 years ago when I started the company, I was selling a lot of stock that was really cheap. And then it just went through the roof. And I stopped because Bentley and Bentley East became the same price as Altona Beach. And the income demographics in Bentley were double what was in Altona, so I stopped selling Altona. But these were individual townhouses and houses. This is a whole house and land estate. Now, look at the picture here. This is a huge block. It's surrounded by established suburbs already, so there's not going to be any more beyond this, okay? Look at the distance from the city. I mean, it's super close, right? It's stockland, great builder, great developer. And this is Haven here, which is one of the subdivisions on the back of this. And there's a future town centre being built there. All the amenities are there. It ticks all the boxes. You can go to Williamstown. So the cool thing here is you're in Altona, you get bored. After coming home, you're looking at 15, 20 minutes at peak hour traffic, maybe 30 minutes if someone breaks down on the Westgate Bridge. You come home, right, you're bored. You go to Williamstown. Williamstown is an amazing suburb. Cafes, restaurants, you can sit there all night, drinking coffee, having dinner with friends, go down onto the beach. So in Altona, you got Altona Beach, you got Williamstown. You can actually go to places, shoot across to the city, you go to the Crown, you got the whole city there. So you have the lifestyle triangle. You've got the schools there. If you work in Altona, there's not much in Altona to work in. You're probably working in the city, but there are small business centres and parks in surrounding suburbs. Newport, Altona do have business centres and parks, accounting firms, marketing firms. There's a bit of industrial estates there as well. So you can still work there, but you've got the schools there and also you've got the entertainment there. And you got the city, like off-peak hour traffic, 15 minutes you're at the Crown Casino and you're in the city walking, sporting events, plays, whatever you're into. So then once again, it's a new house and land estate. Haven is just one part of it. So there's going to be more properties released. 11 k's from the city. This is the determining factor. Why did I choose this? 11 k's from the city, okay? You've got Altona North Shop, 750 metres, Altona Gate Shopping Centre, 1.4 kilometres. Who cares about the library? No one goes to libraries anymore. It's all online now. Altona North Primary School, 1.2. Altona Beach, 5.4 k's. Williamstown, 6.5 k's. It's nothing. It's 10 minutes. You got parks there, leisure centres, gyms, golf courses, lakes. And then you can get back to the city, and you got the train stations connecting you and everything else. There's going to be also a park in the middle of this development, so you can once again connect with the local community. There'll be a very good sense of kind of community there because it's small, boutique-y. You've got all the schools, okay? So this is what they can't build in new house or land estates in Beveridge, or, for example, or, you know, the new estates. You have schools in the catchment area that are very well established, you know. So you have Altona North Primary School, okay, which was established in 1965. So 50 years. You need 50 years for a school to kind of find its footing. You can't have a new school open and think they're going to have any kind of any traction with teachers or anything. St. Leo Primary School, right? Great public, great Catholic school. You've got Newport Lakes Primary School, once again. So you've got a whole history of that as well. You've got Suzanne Quarry High School. You've got Westburn Grammar School, right? So it had its SES score of 96, which is phenomenal. So you got the schools there. It's a new house and land estate, but you feel comfortable that your kids are going to get good education, right? You've got Emmanuel College also. You've got public transport, 5 minutes to Sportswood train station, 5 minutes to Newport. You've got buses 432 and 471 to the city. You've got 5 train stops to Melbourne Central Business District. So if you're catching in the train in the morning, if you can walk to the train station, right, and you got Newport, Sportswood, then you catch the express to the city. You're in the city in 15 minutes. So you're not trapped in the car for an hour each way, right? So think about the lifestyle triangle. Westgate Tunnel project, I don't know if that's going to be completed ever, but they're threatening to complete it, so eventually it'll be there. It just keeps blowing out. The government's just completely useless as building a large infrastructure project, but it's happening. The tunnel's connecting. So once again, that's going to be really good. So you have Yarraville Square Shopping Centre, 9 minutes. You know, you've got the Fiesta Market by the Circle. You've got Millers Road Junction, Altona. So you've got Woolies, Altona North, IGA. You've got Altona Gate Shopping Centre, 2 minutes down the road. So you've got all the shops as well, plus the schools. Altona Gate Shopping Centre. See, this is what Beveridge doesn't have. They haven't got new, and these are a little bit dated now, but they're still there. They're functioning, right? Millers Junction Village is cafes and restaurants that are, 50 years old, 12 k's from the city. So you have these old cafes and restaurants and burger places just around the corner, which you can't build to new house and land estates. And these are what people love about places like Footscray, Carlton, Collingwood, places like St Kilda, where you have this rural community feeling because you're there having coffees and breakfasts and cafes on the weekend, and you can go there and check out your suburb. And there's history about different grocers and stuff like that. Williamstown Beach is fantastic, 8 minutes. See, if you're in Walla and Wallur, to get to the beach, you need an hour and a half, right? So think about that, right? You want to go to the beach in the summer. Well, there's no beaches because you're inland. Altona Beach is 7 minutes from this estate. So the benefit of buying this estate is that you can go to the beach very quickly and then go back to the new house and land estate. Population forecast is obviously high because it's a new estate, so I'm not going to go through that in detail. It's a great suburb, high income coming in, so I'll skip through this. But it is a substantially new suburb that's being built in an industrial area that's changing now, evolving into house and land. I'm a huge fan of it. It ticks all the boxes. I believe it's the number one estate in Melbourne based on my criteria and also on price as well. It definitely ticks all the boxes. And as you know, I'm a big fan of the Bayside area in the eastern suburbs, and this happens to be in the completely opposite side of the city, but it is what it is. I mean, I just think it's going to do really well for investors. Look how close the city is, guys. I mean, Altona North is just so close to the city. how could you, in distance-wise, and to house and land estate, it's incredible, that it's available to Melburnians. So my recommendation is, if you can afford to get one of these properties, if you want a house and land estate to live in or to buy into, this is my number one recommendation, full stop. And they come in different designs. There's off the plan, townhouses, single contracts, split contracts, triple story, double story, all different ones. So the ones that are opposite the park tend to be triple story. They tend to be more for investors. And these are the ones that I recommend targeting. The ones that are 4 or 5 bedroom with a larger layout, they tend to be more for owner occupiers. They're more expensive and you get a lower rental yield. Because remember, one of the things you got to look for is when you're buying into these estates, you got to look for good rental yields around 4.25%, 4.5% to make it work. Otherwise, if you buy the most expensive, biggest house in an estate, you're spending 1.5 million, you're getting a rental yield of 2%. Your numbers are not going to work. You're not going to buy number 2 or 3. The idea is to leapfrog from one property to another and keep going. So momentum and speed is what's going to win. And one of the momentum and speed is buying a property every 1 or 2 years. We're not talking about buying property a month, But have a look at the design. It's just amazing design. Obviously, they look amazing. Great level of fixtures and fittings. The good thing with off-the-plan properties, you just have 2 choices of colour, monochromatic or neutral, and that's it. It's all sorted for you. Just tick a box. Whichever design you want. You don't need to think beyond that. You're never going to be living there. It's for tenants and for the rental market. So this is an example of a really good one, lot number 1013, which is double garage, bedroom downstairs with an ensuite, laundry and an open plan living, and then 3 bedrooms upstairs. So it's a great 219 square meters. It's a great property, and it's a triple story townhouse. Here's another one, lot number 1015. Once again, great total build area, 219 square meters. And remember, lot area is only 96 square meters, so you're only paying 1,000, 1,200 a year in land tax. Remember, if you buy 1,000 square meters of land, you're going to be paying 15 grand a year land tax. Forget about investing, guys. Your rental will be so low, the numbers just won't work. So you want to get the area, you want to get the building, but you want to get the highest possible rental yield, which means you want to keep all your expenses at the lowest level, which includes land tax. Because if you got 960 square meters of land, that's 10 times the land tax that you're paying versus 96 square meters. So townhouses, the advantage is you're getting the suburb, which is 80% of the growth, but you've only got 100 square meters, 150 square meters max of land around you. With house and land as well, there are bigger blocks in this estate. You can go as big as you want. But what I'm saying to you as an investor, you want to be targeting very smartly the properties that are designed for the rental market in these estates. And by the way, the rental is very strong, and there's good comparable sales, very good capital growth. So in that property, the reason I like it as well is because it's very affordable. You can get, for example, lot 808 for 889,000. So they're about $1 million. I would say between 850 to 1.1. So affordability is the other area, because the other estates, what let him down was the price. Once you get to 2 million, it's very unaffordable. But if you're looking at 800 to $1 million, even 1.1, you're getting good rental yield, and you're getting a good property, and you're getting really good growth potential. So I would say the average would be 1 million. 1,050,000. Definitely when you're getting up to the $1.1 million mark, you get the bigger property, like 4 bedroom, 3 bathroom, double lookup garage. And the building area is 187 square meters. The land's 156 square meters. I wouldn't go over 160 square meters, guys. There's no advantage. You just end up paying so much land tax. You're never going to subdivide these because they're already subdivided. So if you're going to be buying a big block of land, 1,000 square meters, you've got to subdivide it down the road. Otherwise, if there's no subdivision potential, what's the point of holding it? You're just giving the Labor government 15 grand a year for nothing. So if you're interested in any of those, feel free to give me a call on the mobile or send me an email, and I'll send you more information about it. Now, for those who are interested in learning more, I'm running my last event for the year in Melbourne, which is the Real Estate Investing Fast Track Weekend. Check out the tickets. It's in my St Kilda office. Tickets are $47, and you get a hard copy of my book as well, which is kind of like a manual for the event, and you get lunch as well. 2 days of immersion in the property investing arena. It's the speakers are mainly Stephen McClutchy from Loans Australia. He's a mortgage specialist and strategist who's settled over $1 billion in real estate. Myself and Cameron Fisher from Changing Places Real Estate, who's been in real estate for 46 years. So that's number one. Number two, if you want to have a strategy session with myself, we can sit down either face-to-face in my St Kilda office or on Zoom. You can. It's funny because no one's to go anywhere anymore. I had a client. I'm in St Kilda in Alma Road, and one of my clients was in St Kilda East, which is literally next suburb over. I reckon they were like 900 meters from my office. And I said to her, I'm in the office. Did you want to come in for a meeting? Oh no, I want to do a Zoom call. I said, well, I'll be in the office that day anyway. If you want to come in, we can jump into the boardroom. No, that's good. We're happy on Zoom. So they were 900 meters away from me, and we did a Zoom call. No one's to go anywhere and park anymore. It's crazy. So most of my calls now on Zoom, where we work out where you want to be, where you are, and I work out a plan. So it's about an hour usually, depending on the complication of your situation. We work out where you are, what you want to accomplish, and then I work out a strategy to get you from A to B that incorporates property acquisition. Remember, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you've got to have an all-encompassing investment plan around property investing. So many people I see, to get from A to B, they waste so much time and years of buying the wrong properties. The amount of time we've seen people buy house and land estates in the wrong estates and have no growth in 5 years, or apartments in Docklands or Southbank. I mean, I've had clients just so last year, they bought a property, a two-bedroom apartment in Docklands, which was $750,000. It was 10 years ago. They bought it around 2015. $4,000 per year in body corporate, because it's got a cinema room, it's got a private rooftop area, and it's got a bunch of other areas that you can use as communal areas, right? So $4,000 roughly in owner's corporation. They bought it for $750,000. They had it for 10 years. We had it valued for $780,000. What's the point? You might as well not do property at all, So it's an hour strategy session. You walk away with a clear understanding of what actions you need to take to bridge the gap between where you are currently and where you want to be. I'll give you also introduction. If you want my mortgage brokers, my accountants, the whole team that I use, my solicitors, my quantity surveyors, my financial planners that I've used myself, I can give you referrals to the best people in the industry. I've known them because I've been doing this for 30 years now. So you can definitely, if you want a team, your team is they ask me sometimes, is there a secret to wealth creation and through property? Yeah, you want to surround yourself with people that are smarter and more astute and wealthier than you are, and then they'll just drag you up to success. So you want to make sure your accountant, your financial planner are smarter and more successful than you and have investment properties. If there is a secret, that's it, and then they'll take you to the next level. And so I've got the whole team of people around me that work with my clients very well, one-on-one, and you can walk away. You can contact these all independent companies. Most of them have been around a lot longer than I have. The only qualification is that you need to have a minimum serviceability of $700,000. I don't actually source any properties in Melbourne under $700,000. I don't know what you can buy under $700,000 at all in Melbourne anymore. So if you're a single borrower, you need to have an income of around $95,000 and access to about $112,000 in cash to settle a property. If you go for first home buyer now with a 5% deposit, which is amazing, I'm going to do a video on this, basically 5% deposit, no LMI, no income testing, then you can get away with a lot lower, but you need to have at least $700,000 borrowing capacity. If you're a couple, you need to be on a kind of 140 income combined, $700,000. $700,000 you can get a house to land package or a two-bedroom townhouse in a good area. Below that, I just don't have any stock, so I won't be able to assist you. Here's some case studies. People have asked me about my case studies. So I mentioned before Janet from Melbourne. So she bought a property in Alvina Street, I should say, Oakleigh South, and then she took the equity and bought another property in Heidelberg Heights. So that's a really good. The goal is to get to 8 properties in 10 years. This is also another client of mine, Millard from Melbourne. He purchased 3 investment properties in 2 years. So he ended up buying a Carnegie for $1.225 million with $1,200 rent per week. Went from $880 to $1,200 rent per week. Then in St Kilda in Alma Road, 995, which is settling in about a month. End of October. Yeah, it's about a month. And then he bought number 3 in Pascoe Vale South, in Anderson Street as well. So what we're doing with our clients is they start off with one property, then they use the equity of that property to leapfrog from one property to another, and then they end up buying number 2, number 3, number 4, and just keep going. And it's very addictive, guys. It's like a game. Once you get the property investing bug, it's very difficult to change. The goal for Millard is 10 properties over 10 years. We're definitely going to get there. This is another client of mine from Geelong. His name is Charles, and he bought 3 investment properties in 2 years. So he bought Carnegie as well in Jersey Parade, 1.225 million. And then he bought another property in Chelsea on the beach side of the highway for 1.14 million, and another one in Belfield for 1.175 million. So 3 properties, once again, leapfrogging from one to another, and he's on his way to get 12 properties in 10 years. Here's another client of mine who is John from Melbourne, and he bought 6 investment properties in 10 years. Some of my older clients that have been with me for 12 years are buying the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th property now. So definitely what I'm doing is working because, well, there's, I'm doing a book on case studies, eventually tracking these investors over time. So this was his first property in Carrum that he bought for a while back, which was when he started his journey. Then he bought another property in Station Street in Bond Beach for just 500,000. Then in Mornington, 700,000 for a property. And then in St Kilda, in Martin Street, some really cool apartments for 635. And then he went to Queensland and bought some properties there. So a lot of my clients incorporate other, cities as well. You can do whatever you like. You can incorporate even different strategies. But I think at the core of every property portfolio should be fundamentally blue chip areas with good 3-bedroom townhouses or detached houses, and then you can build on top of that. So his goal is to get 10 properties in 15 years, replace his income, and he's definitely going to achieve that. So if you want to be one of those people who is on their journey of replacing your income, send me an email to conrad@investorsprime.com.au, and we can catch up in person or on Zoom. I'll go through your situation and we can go from there. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you picked up a few clues on this video. I hope I have motivated you to get into the market. And also, I just hope that I have saved you from making some fundamental mistakes, because I can guarantee you one thing. There's going to be a lot of marketing about Beveridge and all the suburbs between Beveridge and Wollert. And I can tell you now, these are the worst capital growth areas in Melbourne for all those reasons that I mentioned in this video. I wish you all the best in investing. This is Konrad Bobilak. I'll see you guys on the inside.